What if your mind became so clear that people stepped back when you spoke? What if your thoughts cut through confusion so precisely that others felt exposed just being near you? The common belief is that mental clarity brings inner peace. That is not true at first. It brings discomfort, resistance, and often leaves you standing alone. The world fills with people who think in circles, trapped in loops of borrowed opinions and half-formed ideas. Yet someone who sees through their own mental fog radiates a different energy, one that others find both fascinating and frightening. We fear this level of clarity not because it threatens others, but because it first threatens ourselves. Everyone wants to believe they think for themselves. Everyone rushes to have the smartest take, the quickest response, the perfect answer. But true mental clarity comes from something entirely different. It requires pause, depth, and radical honesty about what lies beneath your thoughts. The most terrifying journey is not exploring the world, but exploring yourself. People avoid clear thinking because clear thinking reveals the stories we tell ourselves. It shows us who we are without our masks. We live surrounded by noise, notifications that never stop, headlines that demand attention, social media that pulls reactions before reflection. Yet beneath this constant flood, a hunger grows. A hunger for something genuine, something that stands firm when everything else wavers. The hunger for clarity that no algorithm can satisfy. This exploration goes far beyond studying Montaigne as some historical figure from dusty textbooks. This is about using his method to transform how you think, how you decide, and how you live. His approach works without philosophical vocabulary or academic credentials. It requires only courage, not the bravery that faces external dangers, but the kind that faces the war within your own mind. The genius of Montaigne was not superior intelligence or education. His power came from a willingness to examine himself with brutal honesty when everyone else hid behind comfortable lies. He looked in the mirror each day, not just to fix his appearance, but to question his soul. The truths he found were not always beautiful, but they were real. That reality gave him freedom that even the most powerful people of his time secretly envied. I will show you how to apply this same method to develop thinking so clear it unsettles those around you. More importantly, this clarity will heal parts of yourself you never knew were broken. Before we discuss clear thinking, we must understand the fog that surrounds us. Most humans live in mental cloudiness, not because they lack intelligence, but because modern life trains us to stay mentally busy while remaining emotionally disconnected. Our heads overflow with information while our inner voice gets lost in the noise. The morning alarm sounds. Your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes fully open. You check notifications, headlines, messages. The world pours in before you. Have formed a single original thought. You read comments, form quick opinions, react to what others say. You believe you are thinking independently, but you are merely processing what others have already decided is important. Mental fast food fills you up, but leaves no real nourishment. The worst deception is that you mistake this reactive process for actual thinking. The thoughts feel like yours because they happen inside your head, but their origins lie elsewhere. We exist in an era of reaction, not reflection. The modern world rewards those who respond quickly, not those who consider deeply. Everyone wants your hot take, your instant analysis, your immediate position. No one encourages you to sit with uncertainty or embrace the power of "I do not know yet." And there lies the danger. The fog thickens when you grasp for certainty just to feel safe. You mistake strong opinions for clear thinking. These are not the same. The human brain contains built-in traps that block clear thinking. First is confirmation bias. Your mind automatically searches for information that supports what you already believe. This mental bodyguard protects your existing views, but prevents growth. When you never challenge your beliefs, you are not thinking, you are rehearsing. Then comes the ego defense system. This psychological mechanism does not care about truth. It exists solely to protect your self-image. It deflects criticism, rewrites memories, and maintains the illusion that you are always reasonable, always justified. The ego creates a version of you that feels secure, even when that version bears little resemblance to reality. It chooses comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. Most people never pause long enough to notice this process at work. The path forward begins with one uncomfortable truth. Most of your thoughts were not created by you. They were inherited from parents, teachers, friends, media, and algorithms. They arrived in your mind without invitation or examination. The crucial question becomes, when did you last stop to ask, do I truly believe this, or am I afraid to question it? That moment marks the beginning of mental clarity. This question opens the door that most people quickly close. Once you start examining your thoughts, you cannot pretend anymore. You cannot unsee what becomes visible. True clarity comes not from cleverness, but from courage. It requires facing aspects of yourself you have ignored for years. It means letting go of certainties that once defined you. It demands abandoning ideas that once felt safe, even when those ideas formed part of your identity. For anyone raised in a world that values appearance over substance, this path feels terrifying, but also liberating beyond measure. The world before clarity feels comfortable but hollow. It rewards performance over perception, distraction over depth. Everything moves too fast for wisdom to take root. Consider this question: what truth about yourself do you avoid acknowledging even when alone? That question waits for everyone at the entrance to authentic thinking. Montaigne faced it daily. If you seek thinking so clear, it transforms both you and those around you. Your journey begins with honest answers, not clever ones. Montaigne never wrote to impress others with his intelligence. He performed no intellectual tricks. Instead, he engaged in something both simpler and more radical. He investigated himself, not just his abstract ideas, but his deepest fears, his embarrassing contradictions, his physical desires, his thoughts about death. He wanted to see himself without filters or flattery. This approach was not an academic exercise, but a spiritual practice. Most people build layers of protection around themselves. Beneath proclaimed confidence hides insecurity. Behind declarations of closure lies unresolved grief. Under expressions of indifference lurks fear of rejection. We construct personalities like armor against vulnerability. Montaigne refused such armor. He allowed himself to appear inconsistent, uncertain, and human. Because he embraced these qualities openly, his thinking achieved remarkable clarity, while everyone else remained confused. His most powerful statement reveals his method: "I am myself, the matter of my book." He did not write about politics, religion, or winning arguments. He wrote about the experience of being human, trying to understand himself. This explains why his work resonates centuries later. It speaks not about temporary concerns, but about the permanent struggle to know ourselves honestly. This approach disrupts the ego's protective systems. The ego exists to maintain control and stability. When you begin questioning yourself deeply, you threaten this entire structure. The moment you admit, "Perhaps I do not know myself as well as I believe," the walls begin to crumble. This is precisely what Montaigne practiced repeatedly. Clear thinking requires ending self-deception. You must examine your jealousy, your pettiness, your hidden motivations without justifying them. You must witness these aspects without immediately trying to fix or hide them. Only when the fog of self-protection lifts can you see reality clearly. The essence of clear thinking is not finding perfect answers, but learning to sit with uncomfortable questions. Montaigne never wrote to prove himself right. He wrote to discover what he actually thought, not in theory, but in practice. As his pen moved across the page, anyone who has ever written honestly in a journal, truly honest without self-censorship, understands this experience. The thoughts that emerge often surprise you because they come from deeper than your practiced social responses. Montaigne called his writings essays, from the French word essayer, meaning to try, to test, to attempt. Each piece served as an experiment. What do I really believe about friendship, about fear, about myself? He never started with conclusions. He allowed the writing process itself to reveal discoveries. The secret lies there. He wrote not to appear intelligent, but to become more real. This approach works in your life when applied to concrete questions. Take something significant like, why do I fear being forgotten? Instead of searching for expert opinions or asking for quick answers online, you explore it yourself. You write without filtering. You allow uncomfortable memories to surface. You let contradictions exist. Through this process, you begin thinking like Montaigne. The formula looks simple: inquiry without performance. Begin with genuine uncertainty, not polished ideas. Allow messy, contradictory thoughts to emerge without forcing order too quickly. Use your own experiences as evidence rather than hiding behind quotes from authorities. Reference others for perspective, but always return to your own inner compass. This work engages emotions because the moment you stop trying to sound smart and start being honest, your internal defenses activate. Fear of being wrong, fear of judgment, fear of discovering uncomfortable truths all arise to protect you from clarity. This explains why Montaigne's method transforms so powerfully. When you create space to think without pretending, you become intellectually dangerous, not through aggression, but through honesty that few others practice. As you adopt this method of patient inquiry, your mental landscape changes. You begin noticing the repetitive thoughts, the borrowed opinions, the voices that never originated within you. Slowly, your mind transforms from a tangled knot of reactions into an open field where truth can breathe freely. This does not mean you always reach neat conclusions. Montaigne often ended his essays more confused than when he started, but his confusion contained honesty. And that honesty, that persistent questioning, clears the mind more effectively than premature certainty. Clarity comes not from solving yourself completely, but from finally stopping the performance. Principle 1. The first principle requires challenging your own certainty. Begin arguing against your strongest beliefs. Montaigne practiced this relentlessly. He would write with conviction about an idea, then deliberately attack his own position halfway through. This represented not indecision, but discipline. He recognized that first thoughts usually emerge from ego, not wisdom. Consider your daily mental habits. You form strong opinions about politics, relationships, career choices. These positions feel correct and justified. But how often do you pause and ask, what if I am completely wrong about this? What would the opposing argument be if I had to make it sincerely? This practice builds mental strength through resistance training. If your ideas collapse under questioning from your own mind, they lack clarity to begin with. Montaigne understood that you sharpen thinking not by defending positions, but by willingly challenging them without becoming destabilized. This creates intellectual integrity few people develop. Principle 2. The second principle involves separating from identity attachments. The stronger you identify with labels, the harder clear thinking becomes. Montaigne held many formal roles: judge, landowner, scholar, yet he set them aside when examining ideas. He understood that honest thought becomes impossible when protecting A chosen image of yourself. Apply this to your life. You have constructed identities, the successful one, the caretaker, the rebel, the spiritual person, the practical one. But what happens when these identities distort your thinking? When fear of not matching your self-image prevents growth? Detachment from identity does not mean becoming nothing. It means gaining freedom. Freedom to question beliefs that once seemed essential. Freedom to evolve beyond previous limitations. Freedom to acknowledge that last year's certainties may not serve this year's growth. This principle terrifies most people because identity provides safety. But the clarity waiting beyond that fear transforms everything. Principle 3. The third principle involves contemplating mortality and uncertainty. Montaigne wrote extensively about death, not from morbid obsession, but because he recognized what modern psychology confirms. Confronting mortality clarifies priorities instantly. People spend decades pretending time stretches infinitely. They postpone honesty, delay difficult conversations, and numb awareness of life's temporary nature. But when you genuinely remember your finite existence, your thinking transforms from sleepwalking to full alertness. Montaigne stated, "To philosophize is to learn to die." This means not surrendering to despair, but practicing release of ego, pride, and illusion. You recognize that most mental clutter stems from fear rather than necessity. You were never designed to carry so many concerns. When you loosen your grip on these burdens, clarity enters like fresh air through an opened window. Regular contemplation of mortality, not as abstract concept, but as personal reality, shifts priorities naturally. Petty concerns fade. Social. Performance becomes exhausting rather than rewarding. What truly matters comes into sharp focus. You begin asking, what do I want my life to represent when I am gone? This question clears mental fog more effectively than any productivity system. Most personal development focuses on changing your circumstances. Montaigne took a different approach. He sought not to change his life, but to understand it deeply. Through that understanding, transformation happened naturally. True clarity works beyond intellectual knowledge. It involves what you willingly feel, confront, and integrate. It appears messy rather than neat, healing rather than merely impressive. You practice these methods of inquiry and honest reflection, something surprising occurs. The anxiety that has accompanied you for years begins to dissolve. Not because external problems disappear, but because you stop lying to yourself. Most persistent anxiety stems from the gap between who you pretend to be and who you truly are. The energy required to maintain illusions drains your mental resources constantly. Consider how exhausting it feels to pretend confidence when you feel uncertain, to act unaffected when you feel hurt, to pursue goals that secretly hold no meaning. For you, to carry unnamed pain year after year. Now imagine releasing that energy. When you stop performing and start listening to your authentic voice beneath the noise, that represents not just clarity, but freedom. Clear thinking disturbs others because it changes how you participate in social dynamics. You stop engaging in pointless arguments. You withdraw from gossip. You lose interest in impressing people. You question what you previously accepted without thought. People still living in mental fog may resist these changes. They may try pulling you back toward collective illusions. This stage tests your emotional resilience because clarity brings temporary loneliness alongside deeper connection. You need fewer people around you because your own company no longer feels threatening. Montaigne surrounded himself not with admirers, but with silence, books, and meaningful questions. In that space, he built something unshakable, an inner life that external circumstances could not destroy. You can develop this quality not by imitating Montaigne, but by practicing what he practiced, asking better questions, sitting longer with discomfort, telling deeper truths without flinching. Mental clarity will not make life easier, it will make life honest. From that honesty comes genuine power, not control over others, but mastery of your relationship with your own mind. When you establish peace there, external approval and disapproval lose their grip on you. The time has come to move beyond theory into practice. If something in this message resonates with you, you likely feel pulled toward greater depth. You want more than information about clarity. You want to experience it directly. Here are 4 exercises that translate Montaigne's ancient wisdom into your modern life. First exercise: what aspects of myself do I avoid examining and why? This serves as your entry point. Find quiet space without distractions. Write this question at the top of a blank page. Answer truthfully rather than impressively. What parts of yourself receive no honest attention? What thoughts feel too uncomfortable to acknowledge? That discomfort shows where your mental fog concentrates. Clarity begins when you stop hiding from these realizations. Allow the process to challenge you. Welcome the disorientation. The cost feels high but buys real freedom. Second exercise: select one strong belief and construct the opposing argument. This practice develops mental flexibility. If you believe, I must achieve success to have value, argue sincerely that your worth exists independent of achievement. If you believe my past mistakes define me, argue that your wounds create your unique contribution. This practice loosens identity attachments and teaches your mind to explore without clinging to positions. The deeper the belief, the more revealing this exercise becomes. Spend time developing the counter-argument with sincerity. Afterward, notice how your perspective expands beyond previous limitations. Third exercise: if your life ended 1 year from today, what activities and concerns would you immediately abandon? Mortality clarifies priorities without requiring traumatic experiences. Visualize your funeral not morbidly, but meaningfully. Who would attend? What would they remember? Which parts of your current life would matter in that moment? Then ask yourself, why continue investing energy in things that would immediately drop away under these circumstances? Montaigne contemplated death regularly, not from fear, but to remember how to live authentically. This exercise cuts through years of accumulated mental clutter in minutes. Fourth exercise: create a dedicated space for unfiltered thoughts. Whether digital or physical, establish a private location that holds no polished ideas or public performances. This becomes your laboratory for self-discovery. Begin each entry with a genuine question. Why does this relationship pattern repeat in my life? What would people see if my public image disappeared? What burden am I carrying that belongs to someone else? Write not to impress, but to uncover, not to showcase, but to release. Write to become frighteningly clear in the most liberating way possible. These practices serve not self-improvement, but self-recovery. They help you rediscover the version of yourself that existed before performance anxiety, social pressure, and pretense buried your authentic voice. As you reconnect with that core self, your thinking clarifies, your mind quiets, and your impact on others deepens without conscious effort. You have reached not just the end of this message, but the threshold of something few people ever approach. Genuine mental clarity, not the superficial kind that makes you sound intelligent in conversations, the profound kind that brings internal quiet. When you begin seeing yourself without filters or excuses, a remarkable stillness develops within you. This represents not knowing every answer, but knowing who you truly are beneath accumulated noise. Montaigne offered humanity a rare gift, not a complex system, not a rigid philosophy, not a formula for external success. He provided permission to pause, reflect, and journey inward, not because we need fixing, but because clarity already exists within us, waiting to be uncovered. He offered the mirror and taught us to look steadily without turning away. The world will continue pushing you toward noise, speed, and reaction. It rewards distraction and punishes depth, but you now recognize the difference. The people who think with clarity change conversations without raising their voices. Their presence alone shifts the energy of any room they enter. This quality becomes available to you through honest self-examination. It requires walking a path few others choose, sometimes walking it alone. It means thinking with such clarity that it unsettles those still hiding from themselves. One final question deserves your full attention. The question Montaigne would ask if he sat across from you today, if you became completely honest with yourself, fully awake to your reality, what truth would require you to live differently tomorrow? Allow this question to linger. Do not rush toward an answer. Write about it if writing helps you think. Let it disturb your comfortable patterns if necessary. Clarity brings not comfort initially, but rebirth eventually. Thank you for engaging with these ideas. This exploration invited conversation with the part of you that values truth above validation. Whenever external noise overwhelms your inner voice, return to these practices. Listen for that quiet voice within that reminds you, do not perform, do not rush, do not hide. Simply observe and notice who emerges from that honesty. If these ideas sparked recognition, if they prompted even small moments of self-reflection, consider sharing this message with someone searching for substance beyond noise. One moment of genuine clarity often unlocks possibilities neither of you anticipated. The journey toward clear thinking begins with honesty and continues through connection, both with yourself and with others ready for the same transformation.